Yeah, let's go here to Angel. It says, Mulkey is Bobby Knight in high heels.
Bingo. So here's the question. And John and I argued about this on the first half this afternoon. Do the ends justify the means? If it's all about wins, it doesn't matter if you stomp on players, if you run players off, treat people badly, if you're condescending about sexual preferences of women basketball players. She seems to be all of that. But according to my best friend, the ends justify the means.
Well, no, that's not what I meant. I mean,
why it came out of your mouth that way?
No. You have to look at the whole package, right? The whole package. And overall, I think she's a positive for the sport. But, it's one thing for her to be telling her players, don't show off your sexuality, which is, obviously BS, but she shows off herself, when she's on the sidelines with feathers and all this other stuff in her outfits, which, by the way, I really like. I like all of that kind of, like kind of peacocking up and down the court. It's just entertaining, to see coaches like that. I mean, again, I think a lot of this goes back to culture, and the different cultures in America and how they see the world differently. That's part of it. But geez, I mean, LSU basketball is the real deal, and it's going to be a great game tonight.
Oh, I can't believe it. But at the end of the day, it was not a smear campaign by the Washington Post. I don't even think it was a cheap shot from the LA Times columnist. They just reported all the junk that she's been through and how she wrecked a couple of programs and treated people a certain way to get where she is. Bobby Knight in high heels? Yeah, probably so. Next question.
Okay, we got another comment about Mulkey. This is from Gregory, and he says, I love Kim, what she does on the court. She's a winner. She's winning tonight.
That's okay. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Greg, Liverpool, you might be wrong. Would you send your daughter to play for her? That's a big question. I'll be interested to see what kind of national fallout there is, because at the post-game press conference tonight, win or lose versus Caitlin Clark in Iowa, and I think it's a must-see TV game, there will be questions to her about what just happened this weekend. Go ahead.
We want more Mulkey comments. People are piling in here. Kenny's water bottle. This stuff doesn't come out by accident. People had strong feelings that they felt needed to be made public. There is something to be said about a coach with character. It's not just about winning.
Well, then what kind of character is it when she mandates to her players? And let's be honest, lesbians are everywhere in college basketball, and that's the accepted norm. That's a way of life. What kind of coach tells her star players, aka gay, hide it, don't flaunt it, don't talk about it? Why? It's accepted. Why are you telling your star, don't talk about it on social media?
Well, in social media, a lot of these athletes are just superstars.
Yeah.
And it's not just women's basketball, but it's everything, and a lot of other sports. Again, it's incredible how this sport has exploded on the scene.
Oh, the last 5 years.
Yeah, and it's not just Caitlin Clark, or Angel Reese. I mean,
it is Kim Mulkey, and it is the coach at South Carolina who used to be at USC, Dawn Staley. I mean, the phenomenal number of athletes and now the money that's being poured in, and they have now taken control of a piece of the market, and that's spectacular.
Yes,
for women's athletics, and it's an offshoot of Title IX.
Well, I heard that tickets at tonight's game are being sold for a higher price than Final Four tickets for the men, because of LSU Iowa. So
there's a market for women's basketball. It's great in quality.
Have you seen the big girl that plays for South Carolina? I mean, she's terrific. I mean, she's like 6'8". And by the way, I love how the women like to, I mean, they wear lots of makeup on the court and everything to have the feminine side of it. And I think it's wonderful. I mean, it's very self-expressive. And I think the game is terrific, and all the different hairstyles and stuff, it's not as, I don't know,
structured.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good thing. I love seeing this.
Okay, move on. Here we go.
All right. This is from Angel. The coolest man in San Diego with an Edmonton Oilers sweater
is I.
I think he's talking about that North County Blinds ad.
Yeah.
Or North County Eye Center ad.
That's right. Yes. As I told John way back, I don't own a suit. Everything in my closet probably has somebody's logo on it. That's okay. But I just had to wear this today for April 1st because he almost had a heart attack when I came to the front door of the studio and I was wearing this. And whoa.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny how much shit you get online because people are always trying to figure out, who are you a fan of? Oh, you're a Dodger lover, you're a Dodger hater. And then you come rolling in with this sweatshirt, and now people are really confused.
Fashion critics, feel free to jump in here and debate us. Go ahead, John.
Okay, let's go to Richard here. This is a fans forum comment. The ESPN broadcast on Sunday night is unwatchable. The broadcasters run their mouths nonstop. The in-game interviews are out of control.
It's early in the season, but I maintain there should be a structure, a much better structure. Broadcast the game. If you're going to do dugout stuff, make sure it's with the right person. I don't like the live wire in right field with the player who's trying to get set up defensively and are asking them mundane, inane questions. I don't like that. You can have some fun along the way, but the game should be front and center. And the stories, there's so many storylines in baseball you can talk about. Don't be talking about having breakfast at a pancake shop and the guy orders 26 flapjacks. I'm sorry. You're just taking this thing way off track. Now, old school, yeah. Experienced, yeah. But there's a time and place for fun stuff, but not in the center of the broadcast.
Well, did you see the comments a couple of days ago that Kike Hernandez was the one being interviewed, and he's playing, I think, in the infield somewhere, and the pitch comm audio that he is receiving is coming through and leaking into the microphone on the ESPN broadcast. So you have the players being interviewed, distracted, trying to play their position, and then the thing is chirping in his ear saying, slider, and so then he's making his adjustment on the field. And when they first started bringing this out, I liked it at first, but it became clear that it was a distraction to the player to do their job. And then I went, they're probably going too far. But if you've got to do anybody, you got to do an outfielder if it has to be live. But I agree with you. I think in the dugout's the best spot.
Okay, we move on.
Moving on. Okay, here, let's go to Derek. For Hacksaw, who's going to win the Jets-Kings game tonight? And will it be the Jets of Kyle O'Connor doesn't get put on the first line?
Well, the Jets hit a little bit of a lull about a week and a half ago, and the Kings have lost 2 in a row. Kings are playing better. I had totally forgotten. I looked at the standings, the divisional standings. The Kings are in the last wild card spot right now, which is kind of amazing considering they've had a good season. But the Kings right now got issues in goal, and that's a big problem. They do score goals. Not every line is scoring, but they've been, they do have the ability and firepower to make some things happen. Winnipeg has had a really good season, but I don't know if they've topped out or maybe they're exhausted right now. I would have to think, it's kind of desperation time with 10 games left in the season. I got to believe the Jets are going to hand the Kings their third loss, and the Kings are going to be limping home, but then they're going to get a pile of games here at home.
The Kings have just dropped so suddenly throughout the season.
They've been very erratic. They had a stretch of time early where they roared out of the gate.
Yeah.
And then they played really poorly, and everybody stopped scoring, but they've gotten it back in goal. But at the end of the day, playoffs, crunch time, you need goaltending, and I don't know that they've got enough goaltending to make this work.
Playoffs. Let me ask you an odd question here. When you hear the team name Kings, do you think of the hockey team or the NBA team?
Oh no, LA Kings.
Yeah,
because up until 24 months ago, the Sacramento Kings had such a shoddy reputation as an NBA operation. Now they've gotten better with a really good coach, the ex-Laker coach Mike Brown, and they've drafted very well, and they've kind of kept their players, but they're a disaster all along. Now, the Kings are the Miracle on Manchester, and the Kings are Gretzky, and the Kings are Rogie Vachon and Marcel Dion, and the Kings are this collective group that even won a Stanley Cup or two.
All right, let's move on here. We got some more people here. I'm trying to get everybody in. I try not to get the same guy in twice. Let's go to Craig. He says, Soto, excellent. Judged silent so far. Decent pitching by the Yankees, which is a key. Baltimore is scary.
Well, I picked Baltimore to win the division again, and they're a very different team. Baltimore's got good bats. You look at the lineup; those are all homegrown products. And then Baltimore had a lot of young pitching. Some of it was good. One of them got hurt. Then another got hurt. Now they hope to have John Means back, maybe within a month. And he's missed a year and a half. And he was the ace of the staff through a no-hitter before he went down with elbow surgery. But getting Corbin Burns from Milwaukee and then adding Craig Kimbrell, that makes a world of difference in terms of veteran leadership, surrounded by a lot of really good young people. Mike Elias came from the Houston Astros. They went 45-17 a couple of years ago, and Elias went in there, and they drafted. And virtually all those kids, led by Adley Rutschman, they're up there. And they got one more really good kid that surprisingly they sent down to AAA, and he's going to be back up here before long. So Baltimore's a team to beat. Soto out of the gate. I wish Soto had done that in San Diego when he's being paid volumes of money. And we'll see if he can continue to do it. Yankees could be good, but the big issue with the Yankees is pitching. No Garrett Cole. I don't know if I can trust Carlos Rondon because he's had so many physical problems since he left the White Sox. Cortez, the third starter, pretty good pitcher when healthy, but he had arm problems last year. The Yankees, to me, are really wafer thin in the pitching department. Now, maybe Clark Schmidt, who I thought the Padres should have gotten, maybe Clark Schmidt is going to make this next jump and is going to become a big foundation member to the Yankee rotation.
Do you see how Soto got that hit off of Josh Hader?
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of weird for Padre fans. But do you get the sense that Soto is playing harder? I mean, he's pushing himself more now that he's in New York.
He's better because he is in New York.
But maybe that's where he wants to land eventually with the Yankees or the Mets, because that's when he's going to get the most money.
Well, this is a guy who the back end of last season hitting the 290s with power. Before that, he was hitting 226.
Yeah, exactly.
And the year he came here, that half season after the Washington Nationals trade, he hit about 230. It was terrible.
It was awful.
And
yeah.
he's playing left field like there were landmines out there.
But do you think he went through the motions on purpose? I mean, do you think there's any sort of, conspiracy here?
He's making an awful lot of money. I don't know why you would do that, because you kind of damage your reputation.
Yeah.
Although you're represented by Boris, and then Boris will sales pitch you that, hey, it was a bad fit in San Diego. He's flying right now out of the gate. Let's just see if this continues.
Okay, we got a couple more comments here from athletes that have been knighted in England. And Derek says, Sir Jackie Stewart.
F1, correct. Very good.
Yeah, and then here's another one from Callan. He says, Sir Alex Ferguson, who managed in soccer.
Yeah, Manchester United, legendary.
Yeah.
Good call.
That is good call.
Yeah, those of you who came from Sussex, congratulations.
And then, I think someone said cricket, but Derek says here, Sir David Beckham.
That's right.
Him and Posh, right? It's
their sport.
Yeah, it is. Okay, here's another person saying Sir Alex. So love seeing the real-time comments coming in. And let's go here to Callan. And he said, Lee, the Rangers or the Islanders? I know you grew up a Leafs fan.
Rangers are hot. They've had a really good season. They're not getting the kind of recognition. They just have an 11-game win streak. Islanders have kind of struggled, and I don't know whether it's leadership or changes. I don't know that it's just been complete and right with the Islanders, but the Rangers have got a core that's been together, and they just continue to build it through the draft. Now, the goaltending has had injury problems. Sometimes it's a little bit shaky, but the playoffs are going to be phenomenal. The shocking surprise team in the league to me is Vancouver. Vancouver's got, I think, 46 wins, and they are right at the top fighting for home ice advantage for the entire playoffs. And you got, obviously, the Rangers and the Boston Bruins. Tampa Bay is what Tampa Bay has always been, pretty doggone tough. And then you got the Edmonton Oilers, who has all that firepower and all those great players, has yet to get to a Stanley Cup final with Connor McDavid, but they got a lot of depth talent. And then you got Austin Matthews, who's got 60 goals, surrounded by other goal scorers in Toronto. And the Maple Leafs have not won the Stanley Cup since 1967, the original 6. Think about that. My gut feel, though, Toronto does not have goaltending that is Stanley Cup winning caliber. And that's going to be a big issue there. Edmonton's goaltending has taken a massive jump from last year's disappointment with Skinner to this year. Skinner getting a call to play all the important games. And Vancouver, if they get the San Diego goalie back, Thatcher Demko, and they think they will, Vancouver's just a tough matchup because they just lean on you and they beat you, and they got some different guys who can score. There's no 60-goal scorer in Vancouver, but this might be the best team they've had since the Canucks, I think, went to the Stanley Cup Finals in '95 against the Rangers. So we start the Stanley Cup in a couple of weeks. It'll be fun.
It's going to be great. I remember Jim Rome always commenting about how hockey playoffs are like some of the best hockey you'll ever see. But I want to go back to your childhood when you were out on Long Island. Why did you pick the Maple Leafs, and did the Islanders exist as a franchise when you were a kid?
Not when I was young, but the Islanders came and they got great. And I remember the time when they formed the franchise and they had the number 1 pick. And I believe it became Dennis Potvin, a great Hall of Fame defenseman. And they got a great goaltender in Billy Smith, and then the Trottier and Gillies and the original number of Islanders. But Uh, I knew about the Rangers. I didn't pay much attention to them. Knew about the Bruins. I got to see Hockey Night in Canada, and I just got fascinated because they always had Toronto, Montreal every Saturday night on Hockey Night in Canada,
Mhm.
and I just became a Maple Leaf fan and became friends with one of their players for a long lifetime friendship. So I just do there. And when I was broadcasting hockey, that's where I started. People don't know I did 8 years of hockey before I went to the Pac-12 and did Arizona State football and the Sun Devils, and then came here to be the voice of the Chargers. I started in hockey, and my goal was to be in the NHL, and I got 8 years in, and then the NHL WHA merged, and Cleveland got left out. We all lost our job, and I was fortunate to find something unique and different that led me out here. Otherwise, I'd be in old Canada.
Well, I like the story you've told about how you were broadcasting in the Maple Leafs arena.
Gondola.
Yeah, and you were up in the gondola. What was that like?
It's phenomenal. The old Maple Leaf Gardens goes back to the turn of the century, early 1900s. And there's been so many stories written about Maple Leafs hockey and how dominant they were in the 60s and the 50s, and how important it was to the province of Ontario and all of Canada at that point. Because at one point there was only Montreal and Toronto in the original 6 in the NHL. And so when I was in World Hockey Association, we played in Toronto, the Toronto Toros, and they played at Maple Leaf Gardens. And Maple Leaf Gardens is a huge old building, and you walk through the hallways where the fans were, and the walls are aligned with all these legendary pictures. It's like a Hall of Fame. It's phenomenal.
Awesome.
And if you go in the Maple Leaf dressing room, all the walls are lined with all their Hall of Fame players and great games, action photos. It's just phenomenal. So I go upstairs, and where's the press box? Well, the gondola is down there. So you walk across a catwalk and you go down into the gondola, and you are looking right down on the ice.
You're like literally above it?
Yeah. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I was so excited. It was just,
Well, do they still do that now?
No, they moved to the Air Canada Center.
Okay.
So it's a very different arena. It's a beautiful arena. I've not been in that arena. But when you're up high at the old Maple Leaf Gardens or the old Montreal Forum where I went with the Canadians, and those were the ones that owned the NHL, all their banners from the 1920s align the roof. It's phenomenal.
That's awesome.
You don't need to take a picture. You just picture a life.
That's like when you went into the Pittsburgh Steelers Stadium and you were telling me about the photos there.
Yeah. It's just such a cool place.
That's
history.
awesome.
I'm big on history. Let's do a couple more here.
Yeah, let's get some social media guys in here, and let's talk Chargers. And this is from Bug, and he says, talking about Keenan Allen trade. Couldn't believe the Keenan Allen trade when it first came out, after hearing he turned down a pay cut and said no to an extension to stay a Charger for life. Good riddance. He clearly cares more about money than winning, and it shows with the decisions he's made. He also missed the back half of the season, so it's not like he was fully healthy. Wish him luck, but it was a terrible move to not take the cut on his part.
When Bosa took the cut and Khalil Mack took the pay cut, in between them, they took an $11 million cut, which is significant money. They asked Keenan to give up the $4 million roster bonus and that he'd still make a chunk of his contract. They offered him an extension to try to create some more incentive clauses for 25 and 26 that would have allowed him to make more money. He turned it down. And he turned it down to go to Chicago. Chicago has no history of quarterbacks who throw the ball. It's bleeping cold and windy and snowy starting November 1st. That's why they run the ball and play defense, monsters of the Midway. If he'd gone somewhere else, nice weather, you could say, okay, well, he's going to go and continue to play well. But in Chicago, it's tough. So I was disappointed. I like him, self-made guy, came back from a significant knee injury at Cal. He had real serious injuries early in his career with the Chargers, including a really bad spleen injury. Self-made quality player. Just wish he had stayed here, because setting all types of records and doing it with one specific team, that's kind of cool. And could have stayed here with Justin Herbert, and now all their skill guys are gone. I mean, so as excited as they are today, by the way, is the first day of OTA workouts for the new coaching staffs in the league and the Chargers with Harbaugh's the first day in OTAs, weightlifting and running and classroom sessions. They do that for 3 weeks. But they got to fill all these holes. They got holes everywhere on their offense around the quarterback, Justin Herbert.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, the whole skill guys are gone. But, if we talked about this before about would you take a pay cut? And you said it depends who I'm working for in the situation. But that's the Spanos family, that robbed San Diego of a franchise, have screwed up the Chargers for decades. And now I'm Keenan Allen. Now they want me to take a pay cut. Screw that. I am all for him getting what he deserves because he's had a great career and he shouldn't have to take a pay cut. If anyone should have to take a pay cut, it's like all those defensive guys that, just didn't perform.
But they did.
Yeah, well, they did. Yeah, they got rid of him.
They did. No, they did to keep the team together. Bosa and Mack.
Well, yeah.
They gave $11 million back.
Yeah, that's true.
So, you're changing your mind.
Well, yeah, but I'm thinking about all the other guys, like the other linebackers.
Well, the J.C. Jacksons of the world.
Yeah.
Everybody makes mistakes on player personnel, but the Chargers made a horrific salary cap mistake on J.C. Jackson. He wound up getting $31 million, having played 9 games, and they couldn't get him out of here. And they sent him back to New England with Belichick. Belichick benched him. New England just released him, so he's out of the NFL. But it's a unique set of circumstances. You're making a lot of money. I think Keenan Allen's number this year might be 18 million. And he went to them and said, I want 24 million next year. And they said, no, we can't pay 24 million. We got all these cap problems. So I'm not going to condemn the guy. I just wish you have the unique chance your whole life wearing the lightning bolt. That's kind of cool history to carry with you into retirement. So he goes to Chicago, and we'll watch playing with a rookie quarterback where they can throw the football in the wind and the snow and all that.
Watch him have just like a killer year, and the Charger fans are going to be angry again. Okay, let's talk Dodger baseball. This is from Smells Like Javis. He goes, best team money can buy, yet they have the most homegrown players on the roster than any active team. Just off the top of my head, Kershaw, May, Miller, Bueller, Grove, Gonsolin, Sheehan, Stone, Outman, Lux, Smith.
They've done a good job, really good farm system, and 2 years ago, they cut, I want to say, 11 players, and they did it intentionally to get below the luxury tax because they had spent so much money. And then they rented guys who really actually had some pretty good seasons. I mean, J.D. Martinez, bounce back season, David Peralta, pretty steady. And they did that because they stayed competitive till they had the pitching injuries, but they knew they had 5 young arms coming. And they have a history. They have a history of developing really good pitchers. You go back to Eric Gagne.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you look back.
Well, he was on steroids.
Well, true. A lot of people are on steroids in that era. Yeah. But at the end of the day, they have developed a lot of really good young pitchers, and they got more in the pipeline. Speaking of unique situations, there is no storyline attached at all to Julio Urias, whether he's ever going to come back to baseball. Yeah, and that guy was a Cy Young guy 2 years ago. It was 20-4, I think. Mm-hmm. He's out of baseball. Nobody's talking about him at all. And I don't know that he's been taken off the commissioner's exempt list yet, but he's never been charged with anything. Wow. That's really weird.
It is weird. I mean, because he was so talented. But again, I think this is the marketplace dynamics, right? These teams, they know if they sign him, it could be pretty risky for a season ticket base. But I thought it was amazing what Smells Like Java said. That's a long list of really quality homegrown talent.
And you go farther back. You go back and just Google Dodger rosters from 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Unbelievable ability to develop arms and pitchers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And they find him, too, like Fernando Valenzuela.
Yeah. And Ryan Pepio, who they traded.
And they traded him. But I'm going back to Bob Welch and, Don Sutton.
And Steve Howe. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the Dodger way.
Tommy John. Okay, here, let's talk some NFL draft. This is from Mr. Snoopy. Says, what are you talking about? Jaden Daniels is going to go second to Washington, and then the Raiders are not going to trade up.
Well, there's a lot of jockeying going on right now, and we're going to talk a lot of NFL football the end of this week on the Thursday podcast and into next week as we start to zero in on the draft. Let's be very honest, though. There's a lot of clubs at the top of the board. Chicago is definitely taking Caleb Williams, and then you go from Washington, which has now met twice with Drake May, North Carolina, and then you got New England at 3, and Robert Kraft has said you will draft a quarterback. So you got 3 there. Arizona's going to trade out of 4 to somebody that wants a quarterback. Then somebody's going to jump in and probably take J.J. McCarthy from Michigan.
At 4?
That's what I hear.
That's amazing.
And you got the Chargers at 5, who would then have their pick of any receiver they want. Or would they trade out, drop down some, let somebody else jump in at number 5 and take another one of the quarterbacks? I was told Michael Penix's pro day at Washington, he lit it up and he ran a 4.5 40, which nobody had really thought was possible. The one unique name that I'm not hearing from anybody is Bo Nix.
Yeah.
And I'm really kind of surprised at that because he's a systems guy, but he's a smart dude and he's 25 with a world of experience. So I was told by an NFL guy over the weekend, we could have 6 quarterbacks taken in the first 8 players.
Amazing.
So we'll talk more about the draft as we go forward.
What do you think about Marvin Harrison? Do you think the Chargers would take him?
Big question. But if they have said and then said a third time, we're going to run the football, I think they take one of those tackles.
Yeah.
And if they can trade out, because that's what Joe Ortiz did in Baltimore, trade from 5 back to 7 or trade from 5 back to 10. Because see, Minnesota, Denver, and the Raiders are all in that 10, 11, 12 window.
Mm-hmm.
One of them wants to jump in and try to get access maybe to Daniels. I don't know how high they're going to have to go. Daniels statistically is a phenomenal talent, over 12,000 total yards in his career at Arizona State and LSU. But is he a systems guy where they, ran a lot of RPO for him? Is he a big time thrower like Drake May is at 6'5" with a gun for an arm that stands in the pocket? Each quarterback has got a different set of gifts. It's going to be fascinating to see what transpires. One more question here.
Okay, let's talk about the Padres. And this is from Mango Likes Big Butts. And he says, hey, let's be honest. Soto's bat was never really red hot during his tenure in San Diego. The hole will get filled as we go on. But Jake is option number 1 to me. He needs the bounce back year.
Oh, Cronenworth has to have a bounce back year because he's had 2 lousy seasons. And he's got a 7-year contract now that's kind of around his neck. We'll see. Jake has kind of come out of the gate swinging. If he starts to drive the ball, and that's what this new hitting coach, Victor Rodriguez, has said, we want to play gap-to-gap baseball because that's where the hits are at Petco Park, not just home runs. If Jake can revert back to where he was spraying that sucker everywhere and occasionally popping one, then that's really good. But, if you're going to make Jake an outfielder, please tell me who's playing first base because I don't know right now. They still got holes in left. They've got a question mark with the rookie and center. We'll just have to see. It's so early in the season. And, once we get done playing the Cardinals and Giants, who both got pitching problems, then the schedule is going to change a little bit because they got the Dodgers coming up. So we got plenty of time, a lot of time to talk baseball. I don't think it's a complete roster yet.
He does need a big bounce back season. And wouldn't he be perfect in the number 3 spot? We talked about that before. I think he could be a key. I think he's right. But don't you love the bottom of the order for the Padres being really productive? Campusano, Merrill, Pauly. I mean, that's pretty sweet.
Well, those Padre bats are bad San Francisco arms.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. That one Harrison
kid. Of course, it's a fair point.
Yeah,
I said it.
Yeah, you said it. Yeah, that Harrison pitcher for the Giants is pretty good. He was one of their up-and-coming guys.
He's really rock.
Yeah, but they lit up Jeffries, who I think had a rocky pass anyway.
He got hurt. He's pitching with a hip injury. He's probably going back on the DL by now.
Yeah.
And so I think San Francisco's wafer thin once you get beyond their top 2.5 starting pitchers. I just don't like the makeup of the Giant roster right now. But they beat the Padres 2, which I don't think anybody really expected to happen. Hey, listen, we hope